A British TV station was willing to cover something that not enough stations here cover, frankly. And we don't talk enough about, even if you feel that you've heard about it before. And that is, separate from E. Jean Carroll, as crazy as it is that I have to specify that, an allegation of rape against Donald Trump. And before playing that video for you, I saw something from Jake Tapper that I think it's important we lead this segment with this as a reminder of how outrageous it is that we're about to go through doesn't get more attention.
You know, it strikes me what's interesting about the moment we're in right now is that we in the media are treating Vice President Harris like we treat a normal politician, and we're critiquing her answers, and we're talking about, well, she could have said this differently, she could have said that differently. Meanwhile, the Republican nominee literally is talking about liberals being the enemy within, talking about using the military to go after these people. His defenders say, oh, no, he's talking about going after illegal immigrants, or he's going after mobs in the street. And Trump will say, no, no, no. I mean, going after the Pelosi's, going after Adam Schiff, going after Democrats. And these campaigns are in two different universes. Yep. You know, it strikes me what's in.
And of course, as always, I'm trying to remember in every segment to remind you, just so we can get to that goal by the election. If you do appreciate the work this show does, and you want to support it in the free way, you can do so by clicking the subscribe button. We're trying, like I said, to hit that huge milestone, and I'm so grateful to each and every one of you who are already subscribed. The point he's making there on a network that's so guilty of what he's talking about, his network, is really important, which is, I saw one of the CNN commentators, I think it was Dana Bash, saying something to the effect of, at the CNN town hall, Kamala Harris didn't do what she needed to do. And because it's the only routine, the only normal that the folks, most of the people in the media know, I understand how you just fall into what you're used to, which is one candidate goes, you critique them, you critique the other. It all kind of sounds like you're levying equal magnitude critiques on either side, even if that's not your intention. And you do this sort of horse race politics thing. When, as Jake Tapper's saying, there's something crazy about allowing these two campaigns to be run in different universes. Harris is held to one standard. Trump is held to a completely different standard. And as Trump does 10 crazy things a day, maybe there's one story about each of those 10 things, but then they have to go over and create 10 negative stories about Harris to show that they're balanced, even if that's not justified. And all of a sudden, people are so uninformed, and we wonder why the polls are as tight as they are. If we don't inform people properly, they won't be informed properly. And I think another example of this is if any other presidential candidate had the type of sexual misconduct, sexual assault, and rape allegations against them that Donald Trump does, and then not just allegations, but court rulings in front of a jury, there would be more emphasis put on it every day of their campaign. And that brings us to this British TV reporting on Trump's ex-wife and the allegations she brought forward during their divorce proceedings of rape.
His first wife was Czech model Ivana. Their acrimonious divorce left behind a time bomb in the form of a legal deposition from Ivana about an incident in 1989 as their marriage fell apart. This incident has been almost entirely ignored in the current campaign. To find out more, I had to trek to the far end of Long Island.
Harry Hart?
Yeah, I believe so. How are you, Matt?
I'm fine, thank you. Trump's biographer, Harry Hurt, is one of the few to have written about it.
Welcome.
Thank you so much.
At one point, one night, he comes in a rage and starts pulling Ivana's hair. And then, according to her sworn deposition testimony in their divorce, he raped me, she said. She was so...
this was according to her deposition.
Sworn under oath during the divorce case.
He raped me.
He raped me. At this point, she is terrified. She runs out of the room, runs down the hall to her mother's room, and locks the door behind her, stays up crying all night. The next morning, again, according to her testimony, she comes creeping out of the thing, sees him, and he goes, "Did it hurt?"
The subsequent divorce settlement included a gagging order, preventing Ivana from publicly discussing their marriage. When Hurt's book was published, it included a statement from Ivana.
I wish to say that on one occasion during 1989, Mr. Trump and I had marital relations in which he behaved very differently towards me than he had during our marriage. As a woman, I felt violated, as the love and tenderness which he normally exhibited towards me was absent. I refer to this as a rape, but I do not want my words to be interpreted in a literal or criminal sense.
Trump denies this story, and more recently, Ivana has described it as being totally without merit. Did he ever threaten to sue you over the publication of those details?
No, he did not. There was nothing they could say because it was sworn testimony by Ivana. Beyond just the sexual particulars here, it is evidence to me of a very unstable personality that's been unstable for a very, very long time. And this isn't someone whose hand should be on the nuclear football. It's just quite that simple, I think.
And so a couple things. First off, MAGA will say, well, she revoked the statement as a part of the settlement after testifying to it in a sworn testimony under oath. And I want to say as well, for further context of what brought this back to my attention or reminded me that we should be talking about this, is I had some family members watch the new movie out, The Apprentice, and it's about Trump. And one of the really controversial scenes that has gotten the Trump camp really upset is the depiction of this exact scene, this rape scene. But why were they comfortable putting it in the movie? It's because of what the gentleman there said. There's testimony to back it up that, of course, as a part of the settlement, she's now not standing by. And that brings us to the second key point, which is, okay, then often when that was out before Trump originally ran for president, when the dozens of sexual assault allegations were out against him from all these different women, what was the reaction from MAGA? Well, this hasn't been proven in a court of law. And then E. Jean Carroll takes him to court. It's long past the statute of limitations, so this wasn't criminal court, but in civil court, she took him to court and got him found liable in front of a jury of his peers of sexually assaulting. The judge clarified the ruling is what we determine to be rape. That's what Trump was found liable of. And we sort of have stopped talking about it. Isn't that? We'll talk about how I think Kamala Harris used too many filler words in that response. But days will go by where no one's discussing the sexual abuser, as was determined in a court of law, that's running for president. Someone who's having to pay tens of millions of dollars to a woman because he was found liable, and I should say liable for raping and for defaming afterwards by denying the incident. E. Jean Carroll. And then when he goes out in public and denies these things, now in the clip I'm going to play for you, referring to a totally different woman, not his ex-wife, not E. Jean Carroll, but a different person who accused him of sexual assault. And his reasoning as to why it's not plausible that he did this to her is because she wouldn't have been the chosen one.
Now, there were two witnesses. One is a woman who's followed me for years. She said in 1979, I was in an airplane with her, commercial flight, and we became very intimate. I just sat down. I think I had the book, The Art of the Deal. I was famous then, too. I've been famous for a long time. And we're sitting in first class, according to her. Never happened, by the way. Totally made up story. She's a Clinton person, too, by the way. Big Clinton person. She made up the story. And so many years ago, and I think it would be 1979. One of my many people behind me could correct it, but I think she said 1979. That's a long time ago. And I sat down. I believe I had some pretty big success then, and I was being talked about a lot. Maybe The Art of the Deal was out, sometime after that. I'm not sure. But I was well known. And passengers are coming into the plane. And she said I was making out with her. And then, after 15 minutes, and then she changed her story a couple of times, maybe it was quicker, that I grabbed her at a certain part, and that was when she had enough. Now, so think of the impracticality of this. I'm famous. I'm in a plane. People are coming into the plane. And I'm looking at a woman, and I grab her, and I start kissing her and making out with her. What are the chances of that happening? What are the chances? And frankly, I know you're going to say it's a terrible thing to say, but it couldn't have happened. It didn't happen. And she would not have been the chosen one. She would not have been the chosen one. She has gone around for years.
And often the defense from MAGA people, I don't even know what it is at this point. Oh, all the dozens of allegations, and his ex-wife, and E. Jean Carroll, and the jurors, and everyone is a part of the big conspiracy to lie about Trump. But another defense will be, no, he doesn't mean that the only thing preventing him from sexually assaulting someone is them being hot enough for him. That's not the argument he's making. He's just saying, in addition to him morally being opposed to the violation of someone's consent, he also is taking note of the fact that they're not his type. But what kind of, I think only the mind of a predator thinks that way. Because if ever I were accused of the things Trump's been accused of, my reaction and my denial is because I wouldn't do that. So I'd be saying, I would never, however the story goes according to them, I would never violate someone's consent like that, touch them in any way that they don't want me to. That's the reason I wouldn't do it. It wouldn't come into my mind to say, oh, well, they're not even hot, so they want to be the chosen one. Oh, I would do that. They just want to be the chosen one. That's what that phrase means, chosen one, meaning he would choose some people, but that person wouldn't be chosen to be assaulted. What kind of twisted, messed up mind thinks that way? The mind of a predator. The mind of someone who does do these things. And the continued denials from those who defend him, I'm getting really exhausted. Now that it has been litigated in a court of law, you always move the goalposts. And now it's, it would have to be in a criminal court of law. But when Trump is found guilty of something in a criminal court of law, you don't care about that either. And so if it were on sexual assault charges, I don't believe you. I don't believe that would be the line for you. You would move it again. You would say that case was rigged as well. Because at some point, you're going to have to admit to yourself, MAGA, your principle is loyalty to Trump, not to our Constitution, not to the respect of people, the respect of consent, the respect of women, not to our country or patriotism or your fellow American. It's to Trump. And every day that you side with the election was rigged, the media is rigged, this court case was rigged, that court case was rigged, this lawsuit was rigged, argument, you prove that over and over again. You affirm to us when I want, so badly I want to believe the best about people, but you are desperately trying to convince me of the worst. Please, American media, put more emphasis on the most consequential things. Yes, there's criticism for Kamala Harris, but putting them on equal footing, putting them and judging them by wildly different standards is a disservice and could sleepwalk us in to fascism, as people say, as Trump's longest-serving chief of staff says, but also into a world where the most powerful country on the planet is represented by a sexual abuser. Let me know what you thought in the comments.